All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something absolutely fascinating. We're going to reveal how a widely known religious text is, in reality, a highly sophisticated psychological map. We're digging into Surah Yusuf, the 12th chapter of the Quran. But listen, we are leaving the traditional historical drama at the door. We're going way deeper today. So think about this for a second. What if a 1400-year-old story was actually a map of human consciousness? I really want to challenge you today to peel back the layers of what you might think is just a familiar, everyday tale of sibling rivalry and betrayal. Because when we let the text define its own terms, a completely different picture emerges. As you'll see, we're going to discover how it operates as a profound structural blueprint for understanding reality itself.
Moving right along to Section 1, the blueprint of reality.
What's really interesting here is how this text fundamentally redefines our entire understanding of what a story even is. The text calls this account Ahsan al-Qasas. Now, traditionally, that just gets translated as the best story. But if we look at the actual mechanical Arabic root, QSS, it literally means to trace footprints. It's a precise methodology of tracking. So we aren't just reading a fun tale for entertainment, we are tracking the actual mechanics of cause and effect. We're meticulously tracing human choices and psychological states all the way back to their root causes. And right from the jump, the text makes some pretty massive claims about itself. It calls itself a Kitaba Mubin, a clear, completely evident book. It asserts it is Ma Kana Hadithan Yuftara, meaning absolutely not some invented narration or cultural mythology. But the most staggering claim is right there in the middle. Tafsil Kulashe, a detailed exposition of everything. It's explicitly pointing out that this specific narrative contains a complete, detailed exposition of everything you need to know to understand how reality actually functions. Talk about a bold claim, right?
Which brings us to Section 2, beneath surface appearances.
This brilliantly illustrates the massive gap between what we see and what's actually happening. Just look at the surface. Yusuf's brothers plot against him, throw him down a well, and he gets sold as a slave for a really small price. Now, on the surface, this looks like an absolute disaster. I mean, it's literal cruelty. He's been degraded to a quote-unquote worthless slave. But underneath, this exact agonizing transaction is exactly what positions him for greatness. It drops him directly into the household where his unique abilities are eventually going to be recognized. The text is proving to us that our immediate surface-level judgments of what constitutes a disaster are, well, they're often completely unreliable. So if surface appearances are totally deceptive, who or what is actively deceiving us? Well, the true villain in this blueprint isn't external. It's not the brothers, it's not the people who bought them, it's internal. The text uses the phrase "sawwala lakum anfusukum." This exposes the unrefined human ego, the nafs, as a literal illusion-making machine. The root SWL means to decorate something harmful just to make it appear beautiful or somehow justified to your conscious mind. It's the internal illusion that generates destructive behavior, kind of like the brothers convincing themselves that betrayal was a totally logical solution to their jealousy. Let's move into Section 3, navigating the illusion. Okay, since we know this illusion exists, what tools does the text actually give us to survive and navigate this distorted reality? The first major tool is ta'wil al-ahadith. Now, you've probably heard this translated simply as dream interpretation, but this explainer completely redefines that idea into more of a systemic superpower. Let's break the roots down real quick. AWL means to return a thing to its original essence. HDTH refers to newly occurred events or conditions. Put them together, and Tawil al-Ahadith is the profound capacity to trace new crises, behaviors, and events back to their essential principles and ultimate consequences. While everyone else is panicking over a drought or a missing cup, a refined consciousness clearly sees the hidden laws of cause and effect at play. Tool number 2 is sabr jamil. This gets reduced to just patience all the time, but wow, it is so much more operational than that. It's active, beautiful restraint. When reality gets distorted all around you, sabr jamil is the firm refusal to react blindly with anger, despair, or violence. It's all about maintaining your internal alignment until clarity finally emerges. The crucial takeaway here is that sabr is not passive resignation. You don't just sit around and wait. It's an active, highly effective strategy of restraint, and you see it used intentionally by both Yaqub and Yusuf. And this beautifully anchors the whole concept of holding steady through hidden knowledge. Listen to this incredibly powerful statement from Yaqub. I only complain of my grief and sorrow to Allah.
And I know from Allah what you do not know. He is deeply, deeply grieving the apparent loss of his son, but he doesn't break. And why is that? Because he accesses a layer of reality way beyond mere empirical observation. He holds on to knowledge that tells him the surface story his sons presented is a complete illusion, and he aligns himself firmly with that deeper truth.
Then we have the third mechanism, al-Burhan, the manifest evidence. So when Yusuf is in the palace and faces this intense temptation that could totally ruin him, he's saved by seeing this Burhan. But by letting the text define itself, we see this isn't some magical lightning bolt from the sky. Because Yusuf's consciousness is already so highly developed, the ultimate destructive consequences of entering into a corrupted act are immediately visible to him. This internal clarity acts like an automatic emergency brake, instantly turning him away from harm. Let's look at how this plays out in Section 4, the mechanics of restraint. This perfectly illustrates our next major point, how a physical descent is actually a required mechanism for internal ascent. Let's walk through this map together. The physical stages of Yusuf's journey aren't just random locations. They are systemic psychological processes. The well wasn't just a literal hole in the ground. It systemically stripped away his familial identity and forced absolute reliance on reality. The palace? That taught him to navigate social hierarchy and intense temptation. The prison was total isolation where he actively refined his capacity to see the truth behind human confusion. Every single agonizing location mapped out here was a completely required stage of psychological refinement.
Actually, let's zoom in on that prison stage for a second. On the surface, the appearance is gross injustice, right? Yusuf did absolutely nothing wrong, yet he's locked away for years. But underneath that, prison is exactly the place where he meets the king's cupbearer. So the crucial point we need to understand is that the prison wasn't a punishment. It wasn't even a delay in his life. It was the exact structural positioning needed for his ultimate rise to power. If he doesn't endure the prison, he doesn't interpret the dream, and he never steps into his role as a steward. It's all connected.
And this all builds to our climax in Section 5, forgiveness and true stewardship.
So, years later, Yusuf has immense power over the resources of the entire land. His brothers, the very guys who literally threw him down a well, stand before him, and they are completely terrified and totally vulnerable. And what does Yusuf tell them? No blame upon you today. May Allah forgive you. He grants them immediate, unconditional release. No demands that they grovel. He doesn't engage in some moral theater or force them to perform their contrition. He just lets it go. How can he possibly do that after everything they put him through? Well, it's because Yusuf is practicing structural forgiveness. He doesn't hold on to resentment because he sees the whole board now. He recognizes that their betrayal was simply a hidden mechanism of reality that systematically refined him and brought him to true stewardship. He lets go of outdated stories. He totally releases the blame. He aligns entirely with the reality of what happened rather than clinging to past trauma. Forgiveness here isn't just about trying to be a good person. It's about being fully, deeply aligned with the truth of how reality actually operates. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I really want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Are you reacting to surface illusions, or are you tracing reality back to its source? Seriously, think about that in your own daily life. Are you letting your own ego create illusions just to justify harmful behavior? Are you emotionally collapsing over surface-level disasters that you maybe don't fully understand yet? Or are you practicing the beautiful, active restraint needed to let clarity emerge? I challenge you to take this profound, 1,400-year-old systemic blueprint and apply it to your own consciousness. Thank you so much for jumping into this fascinating text with me today. Catch you next time.